Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's been a while since we've all been together, this Wise Women Roundtable. So excited to be with all of you again for various reasons, different things that have been coming up for each of us at different times. So here we are all back together. It's so fun. And I'm feeling today, the day we're doing this recording, is the day that the sun is exactly conjunct Regulus. It's also the day that the sun is entering the seasonal sign of Virgo. And it's in the constellation of the lion because Regulus, the heart of the lion, is in the constellation of the lion. It was in 2011 when after 2,160 years of Leo overlaying the heart of the lion and a lot of that constellation, that it shifted. And it was like November of 2011 when that shifted. And the astrologer Jane Rajar saw that as a shifting into a new age when that new sign overlaid. And it would be like a month age, not like a whole 26,000 year cycle age, but a month, 2,160 years for each great month, and about 25,920 years for each great year. We just rounded up to 26,000 years. So it'll take 26,000 years for it to come back to this point. And it's really fascinating me and just bringing up so much for me right now because Mercury is also retrograde over this point 3 times. It's passed twice already, and it's making its last pass on September 9th. And it can only happen every 6 or 7 years that Mercury can cross this place 3 times in its retrograde. And so it's putting a spotlight on the Regulus energy, the sun being right here today, and that happens every year. Every year, around the 22nd of August is when the sun is with Regulus, and then we could say about a week or so before and a week or so after, the sun is still in the range of being with this star. So it's doing a direct transmission from helping to transmit the energy of the star to the earth, and it's all about the heart energy. The other thing that has been coming up for me, and so how are we tuning into and receiving guidance and doing and experiencing self-love? How do we love ourselves? And I was just reading in Louise Hay wrote a book called The Power Within. The Power is Within, I think, or Within You, or something like that. I can't remember the title exactly, but one of the things she says is that self-love is how we activate the power within. If we don't love ourselves, then we're not activating the power within us. So I'm just been feeling really inspired by that perspective. And then this also brings me to this idea of the difference between the signs of the seasons, because today marks the beginning of the Virgo season that will take us to this autumnal equinox. And it's about 30 days until the autumnal equinox. And so the solar seasons are, we call them Virgo, we call them Libra, we call them, and literally the equinoxes and solstices it's 0 Libra for the September equinox and 0 Capricorn for the December solstice. So these are the seasonal energies, and we have an experience of seasons. And it depends on where you live on the planet, because I know Elizabeth is closer to the equator, so her seasons aren't as dramatic as some people might experience in more northern or southern latitudes. And also, if you're really far south of the equator, then you're going to have different seasons than if you're far north of the equator. So, but the sign energies are related to the seasonal energies that are present. And so then the constellations are a whole different thing. And so somebody just said to me recently that the sidereal astrology, which focuses on the constellations and the meaning of the constellations, is more spiritual than tropical astrology. And tropical astrology is more mundane, or more like, about physical reality or something like that. And I'm just like, that's not true. They work together. So as each season moves through each constellation over 26,000 years, there's an evolution that's taking place, and how the constellation, the energy of the constellation is activating the energy of the sign. So if we have the heart energy of the lion, Regulus, the heart of the lion, being overlaid now by Virgo, and Virgo has a lot to do with the energy of how we experience life as sacred. So so now we could tune into it and say, oh, sacred heart energy. How are we honoring our hearts as sacred? How are we honoring our connection to the earth and the heart of the earth as sacred? How are we showing up to be energizing the energy of love? Because I think the energy of love is what changes everything. It's what can transform the world. And so the more that we can come from that place, and I think it reminds me of Marianne Williamson's book, A Return to Love. And then the idea of bringing the constellations, the energy of the constellations and the energy of the seasonal signs back together, creating wholeness. So they've been split apart, and there's an understanding of the constellations, there's understanding of the seasonal signs, but there's no understanding of how they work together. And so this is part of what I feel like I'm on a mission to really understand and speak into, hence why I'm speaking into this right now. Anyway, so that's kind of where I'm at this morning, thinking about these things, and really, how are we returning to wholeness? And what does it take for us to return to wholeness? And I know that you all will have more to say about that. So with that, I'm going to pass this on to Nalini.
Thank you, Kaylin. What Source has been bringing to my attention just this morning and the last day or so, when I've actually been able to cognize better, is sacred space and safe space. And traditionally, in the warrior worlds, sacred space was always safe space. It was forbidden to battle within a sacred space. And, internally, we do it all the time. So that's part of the shift that I see happening in the world. The Source is showing me is the release of the internal battles. I mean, some battles do need to be fought or engaged with, I should say, but the internal ones have to stop now. It's not me saying that. It's not a person. It's just Sources saying, okay, enough. Gaia is supporting different higher frequencies, different energies, and it doesn't mean we won't have boundaries, and it doesn't mean we don't stand up for ourselves, and it doesn't mean we don't own our no. We must. And it has to do, though, with that heart energy, that self-love energy. So 2 years ago, when I was in Ireland, I was swallowed by a dragon. And take that any way you want. I'm not going into it right now, but it was this most incredible energy. And it took me directly into what I was told at the time was the heart of the dragon. It was all these realms of heart. If you think of the dragon energies as balanced flows of energy, balanced flows of flow from Source, basically, and these realms of heart that live within it, that live within also, they're related to roses, oddly, but it was all showing the shape and the unfolding. I was shown that internally, and that's been going on within my body for the last 2 years. And then over the last few weeks, when the body checked out a bit, there was a moment where I realized there were all these little habits, little dust bunnies and wires and cobwebby things that were trying to do things in the ways that my body had been taught to do them. And I did the teaching, most of it, but it's all that stuff. And none of those were optimal, efficient, or basically working. And I was having such trouble being in the body. And so I did the technique I tend to use: pause, take a breath. How does Source want to do this? And it shifted everything. All of a sudden, what it was, making tea or whatever, these were not huge things. Whatever it was just done in Source's way. And I felt for the first time in probably a year that dragon or lion heart energy, they're basically the same, it's almost laughing through me and saying, see? And it's this whole flow of just incredible strength, but it's heart-based strength. And from that place of Source taking over, Source creating the boundaries from within us that we need in the moment. They will shift and change. It's not like we're just going to have this shell that has shields hung on it that we're used to and we know. Not anymore. This is just this constant recreating, rewriting a form, and it's happening all the time right now, every moment, like whether it's a 2,000-year cosmic month or whether it's a 26,000 cosmic years, it's like they're all happening right now and all at once and shifting. And so we don't have to pay attention to each exact shift. I don't think we're capable, but we can feel, here's how that flow is carrying each of us. Here's how our source essence flows through us with that, as that, and just choose to not align with it, but be it, be in it. It's like rafting. You keep, I live in Colorado. It's big here. You pick up your feet, you point them downstream, and you let the river do the work. And that's really where we are in this very turbulent time. It's all shifting, it's all changing. There's amazing, miraculous energy. This last full moon that Kayla did a wonderful video about, this last the super blue moon just brought in literally this tide of light blue light, like beautiful morning sky light. And I usually don't get it in that specific a palette. It's usually very opalescent and shifty and tricksy sometimes, but this was just this hosing down of everything. And does that mean everything will get easier right now? Nope. It's probably going to chop more through the solstice. Does that mean that all of those internal battles are over? Well, we can clearly see they're not, because we're going through them and they're out picturing in our lives. Something will trigger or interrupt, and we thought, oh, that was long done with. It was. The cool thing to notice right now is, yes, those things were done with. We have dealt with it. We have processed it. It's just that tide on the planet is cleansing, it's purging. And so we'll feel it because we have at some time had an affinity with whatever that thing is. And so it's all shifting and changing, and we are becoming sacred space. And in order to do that, I'm finding that all the definitions and concepts of what safe space is are shifting and changing. They have to, because they're too limiting for what's happening now. So on that note, I will hand this over to Elizabeth.
Thank you, Nalini. I love this sacred heart, sacred space. In the past 24 hours, I've been dreaming about India, and all the temples are showing up. And I was brought to a beautiful mountain that's worth looking at. It's the 8th largest mountain in the world, called Mount, I'm probably going to butcher the name, but it's Manaslu, I'm pretty sure. And it's actually a very cool mountain because the top of it is the shape of a crescent moon. And I'd never seen this mountain before, except in my dreams last night. And I was given a mantra, was brought to the top of the mountain in this beautiful temple of light. And the mantra was, I become God so that I can release the intellect in the material world. And of course, that could be taken a mazillion ways. But to become source, to become one with the divine will, to work in natural law. And how to do that? Well, we have to give up what our mind thinks it knows and recognize that everything else that we're perceiving in this incredibly formless time is really phenomena. And that even the material world is phenomena. It's not that which is, that doesn't change. And that which doesn't change is really what source is. And that the soul is that you are that. It's the lovely, beautiful statement that I often hear from great teachers, that which you seek also seeks you. Now, that being said, the sacred space and becoming a sacred space, it's so important to recognize, I think, that the I am presence, the soul, is not the body. The body is actually a being that you have an incredible marriage with. It's the longest, most intimate relationship that you'll ever have when in embodiment. And that sacredness is something that kind of got drilled out of us in the matrix with a lot of self-hatred and a lot of the sort of play of the matrix, which is the narcissism. What's in it for me? What's in it for me? Where we identify as the body. And then we miss out on being creator beings. But that requires, if we are going to be that sacred space, if we're going to get that opportunity and really take it seriously, then that requires reverence. And that's why I think I keep being led to India the past few days, is because the East Indian mindset, that culture, has a deep sense of reverence. And it's the reverence for all the cycles and how they play out, kind of like Kaylin's beautiful picture behind her. There's many, many spirals, and they're all working together to create something much larger. And you're no different than that. You orbit people, places, things too. You're an orbiting body as well. And then this leads me to kind of recall some of the better times of being a priestess in the past, in past lives, not some of the messier ones, but some of those better times when that reverence and that sacredness was full of joy. It was full of wonder and life and light and excitement, because there was always a sense of newness, that although we might do the same ritual, that every time we do it, it's different. And what is that new quality that's going to arise? Like this blue light that's it's been subtle, I think, since the solstice, but it's gotten stronger and stronger, and it's not going away. And I do perceive it as sort of the holy flame. It's an incredibly cleansing energy, but also very clarifying. It gives clarity to the mind and the spirit to see, well, okay, if I can recognize the sacredness of my own space and work towards ending those wars inside of me, then what will that really look like? And it's not going to include narcissistic, parasitic energies or people or systems. And this is showing up in my sessions as people's walking away from careers, even though they might even have just a few more years before they get a pension or something. Who knows if that system will be there in the end, but their bodies are saying to them, you are slowly dying in this place that is not honoring your sacredness. It's not honoring how precious being human really is. And that's very powerful to witness those of us that are, and all of us really are here as a transition team. Doesn't matter if you think that you're good enough for that or not. You're here. You chose to come incarnate at one of the craziest, most interesting times on planet Earth. So you're just by nature a badass for being here. But that transition, it's going to mean that we have to dismantle the dogma that keeps us trapped in this idea that we can control the river while we're whitewater rafting. But then the next step is to reclaim what is holy, what is sacred in all of the things that we brought through the Kali Yuga, these times of darkness. Now we're in a time of light. And I think to kind of take it very literally and set yourself up, set your life up where you're no longer identifying as the body, but you're in service to it as the soul. And when you look in the mirror and you say, body, how can I help you today? How can I serve you today? This is part of the antidote to the narcissism pandemic we're looking at, where there's certain people who are running away from their shame so fully that they really are only thinking about what's in it for them, and they're not even identifying as their soul. And then when we're not in service to that anymore, where we say, well, if I do this one thing, or if I put this boundary down, or if I say it just right, then maybe I'll be loved, maybe I'll be given what I need, and all of that. This is a totally big reorientation of saying, I am the soul, and the first being that I serve is my body. And when we do that, the body is going to open the heart and the gut and let us be able to discern whether or not that next step is actually within that sacred divine will, within natural law or not. And this requires us to set aside our intellect so fully and to set aside our attachments to even the whole idea of the material world and survival the way that we've known it. Instead, it's a great act of sacred cleansing each morning to recognize the self as a holy being, a holy temple, and then to do those same acts that we used to do as priests and priestesses, where we would take our shoes off before we enter the temple. We would cleanse ourselves in many ways with smoke or water or whatever, and with ritual. And ritual is something that's very personal at this point. And so thinking practically here, what can you do to make your body a sacred space again, to still your mind, to still your emotional body, so that you can feel the heart and its intelligence and the gut and its intelligence, and serve that incredible being that serves you with great wisdom and equanimity, because your body is in love with you. Your body is madly in love with you, and it wants to work with you in these energies in order to then elevate the sacred connection of all of these bodies and souls working together and to create new earth, to create new templates, to recapitulate the past, and so we don't have to make the same mistakes. And all of these things are writing out in this very formless playing field, where you can sort of see more and more of this idea of living in a new way. But it's so key, of course, to examine carefully what wars go on the inside, because those wars are giving you basically polarities that are really valuable, and that you're not alone in those polarities. I think the arrogance, worthlessness that really develops into narcissism versus codependence, perhaps, that is really on the table, especially in social media right now. And finding that in yourself, dismantling it with great love, because it's very valuable. They're just frequencies. And then letting source do with it as source will, so that you don't have to deal with the density of these things. Otherwise, your mind is going to think it can do something with it. And that's not where we're at anymore. That was a long time ago, that perhaps you could have done anything with it with your mind. So the source within you never changes. It's always the same. And that is the ultimate sacred space. And what would happen if you let yourself actually become part of that immense sacredness that is the earth, that is all of the living beings, that is the mycelium and the trees and the other dimensional beings, and celebrate fully that sacredness each day, waking up from your dream realm and entering into the temple that is the day, that is your life. And what can you do to make that very special and marked in your embodiment and your mind, your spirit? That's something that I think is worth spending some time on. And then I'll leave it up to Sarah to just bring us home. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Elizabeth and Nalini and Kaylin. Yeah, so I'd like to kind of talk into the temple and really just inviting myself here to speak as one of the guardians of the nature kingdom, and some of the things that I've been reminded of recently by others, which has been really helpful for me, is that we think we have some kind of control is the word I mean, over time, and that we can kind of manipulate time, I guess, to and kind of push through it. I think that is part of the old earth. Oh, well, maybe it's not quite the right time to do this thing, but I'll just do it anyway and conjure the forces which will deplete my body and my spirit on some level. I've been reminded very much by people who I trust, who I speak to, that nature, one of the wisest, oldest beings that we can fall back on right now, who isn't going anywhere, is nature. And nature shows us the time, and the more that we can allow ourselves to move into the frequency of nature is going to be so, so supportive for us all, and to move with the timeline of nature. And as you do that, for example, I'll just give an example. I've been trying, note the word, to do something that I really want to do and that I will absolutely do. Interesting words coming out here. Will absolutely. But my heart knows that this is going to happen. But the timing hasn't been right for many, many reasons. And I've kept saying to myself, oh, well, I've missed the timeline. There was a part of me and, the things. But this event, shall we say, I kept putting it off in very human terms. And I was like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And then I went right into my body temple just the other day and felt into a couple of months' time, and it just felt absolutely correct. And so I think we can all do that and just allow ourselves to move with a different sense of time, that your body, like you said, Elizabeth, the heart and the gut will open when we ask the body what it wants to do. But when we connect with nature, that will become more and more obvious to us. And one of the main things is that we shouldn't, the should words coming in, but nature really, really has been speaking to me about not rushing according to a human timeline, but allowing a much more nature-based timeline to come in, which will also involve the heavens and all the astrological beings, because I really see them as to work as one. So when I tuned in today, that was what wanted to be shared, because it's been something that's meant a lot to me in the last few days. There are also 4 nature beings that want to just be part of today. A couple of them, I realize that when I share with you in this way, I often talk about the same beings. And then there's a part of me that goes, well, can't you find a different being, Sarah? And I'm like, no, this is the one that wants to come. And one of them sits on, well, actually 2 of them sit on my desk all the time, they're constant companions to me. So here comes the first one. This is our dear friend Oak, maybe because do you have oaks where you are, Elizabeth? Do oaks grow on the equator? No, they're not. I didn't think they would, but they grow in many, many places in the world. So oak, most of us nowadays, no matter who we are, whether we've got something stressful going on or not, I mean, I think we all have to a lesser or larger degree, but, sometimes we're okay. But if for anybody who really feels that they can't do it on their own, feels very overwhelmed, needs a support system, and the support system or the right support system is not there, please call on Oak. And you can obviously do this through her essence being, but you can also just speak directly to Oak. She's here in her more winter form here because she doesn't have many leaves. There are some there. So this is probably a spring oak. This is one of the Batch Healing Herbs cards. But she may look very different. On our land here in France, we have 4 oaks. And I'm a little bit ashamed to say that when we moved in here, which is 9 years ago now, I didn't recognize that they were oaks. I mean, how I couldn't have done, because they had no leaves. So they look different. So if you have anyone near you, or you could just ask Oak for strength, ask Oak to literally share your worries, share your load with the Oak. They will be more than happy to help you ground and anchor it, because that's actually what oaks do. They are one of the wisest and oldest trees, whose job, if you like, is to be a guardian to many of the beings on our planet. So giving you a hand is like nothing for the oak kingdom. It really isn't. So that was one of them. The other one that I have also spoken at quite a lot, but I also get that there may be people watching who haven't met these beings before. This is Yarrow, so a very different being. So Yarrow comes in on an energetic basis to help us, as what Elizabeth was talking about as well. I think it was actually maybe before we started recording, Elizabeth, we were talking about going into big places and feeling quite off balance by all the energies when there's a lot of things going on, or maybe just a lot of energies. Maybe it's not necessarily right or wrong, it's just a lot of energy. So Yarrow is one of those beings that can really, really help. If you think of your energy system as a kind of porous, beautiful net of energies, and sometimes the net gets a little bit torn or a big bit torn, and it just needs repairing. And Yarrow is a being that can absolutely help with that. So again, you can just call on Yarrow to help you, because she'll come, or you can take her essence, which is super helpful. And this is one of the ones that sits on my desk here, which is so helpful for me. One of the other things that I feel, and this is like a really not great photograph, so sorry, photograph. This is one of my own, actually, but it's quite old, and I think it's got a bit faded over time. I couldn't find another one this afternoon. This is Serato. Serato is one of the batch essences, and I may well have spoken about this before, but it's such a key flower, and she keeps popping up in different places. I saw her here in Southwest France the other day, which was a big sign, but I've also heard others speaking on social media, putting up photographs of this beautiful flower and going, "Who's this?" And I'm like, wow, she's really appearing in people's consciousness. So Serato is here today and always to remind you that what is coming through is most likely going to be correct. So meaning, please trust your intuition. If being outside of yourself, if being more external, which again is something we were talking about before we started recording, is not working right now. It's certainly not working. For my head wants it to work, but my actual body goes, no, you need to stay quiet, be quiet, pull yourself back. We need to trust that, and trust that we are being asked to come back inside of ourselves, because there is a reset going on, and we can't reset if we're out, doing things on the outside. So whatever is coming to you as new as part of this reset, Serato will ask you to trust it. So if you need to make a decision and your head is a bit of like, is it this, is it this, is it this, just come inside and call on Serato. Take the Serato essence if you have some, and just trust your guidance. So key. And then the final one is maybe one that I haven't shared before, but I love, love, love this flower. Just let you look at her for a few seconds. This is one of the Australian bush essences, and as you can see, her name is Croea. And how beautiful is she? So Croea is here to remind us that we don't have to worry. And if there is anything that's causing us to fret a lot, this is not kind of like a panic anxiety, it's more a worry. I'm worried about this. I'm not sure how this is going to work out. I'm worried about this person or this situation or the world or the trees or the dolphins. I'm worried about them. And it's a deep worry that's in my soul. And maybe sometimes my solar plexus hurts a bit because I'm worrying about it. It's another sign. So Croea, can please call on her and ask her to help you transmute this worry and this fear and come back to your center and know that everything is happening in very perfect and very divine timings. So there ends the Nature Kingdom guidance for today. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, all of you. Sarah, that was brilliant. And Elizabeth and Nalini, yes. I got so much out of this. I hope everyone feels that they get so much out of it. And just a quick reminder, check out the show notes. There'll be more information, how to get in touch with us, as well as maybe some other articles and links and things in the show notes. So, and I'm so excited we got to do this and looking forward to getting to do it again. So bye, everybody.